I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my content, please share this video, like, and subscribe. You can also follow me over at Facebook, Instagram.
Guilty of crime.
Hello, everybody. What's up? How you doing today? Everybody's probably tired, right? Tired from the Boone trial, tired from watching either the Leilani Quentin Simon case or Delphi, right? So, I thought, hey, let's cover the Menendez case as any day now. They could just be released. We can just be sitting here and we can get a notification that says these guys got released. So that's what we're talking about today. A release date, possibly. What's new in the case? What the heck even happened in the case if you don't know? Yeah, so many trials at once, Melanie. Good to see you. Good to see you. So many things. I've been watching Grizzly all day while I'm working and working some more, putting out videos, talking with Aubrey Stower's community. It's been great. So do me a favor on your way in, hit the like button. Hello, Scary Sherry. Good to see you. Thank you always for everything you do. I didn't get to thank you last week, but you all, I appreciate. Like, subscribe, and share with your community. Now, quickly, before we get into the Menendez brothers, new evidence set, family talking, and then what went wrong at the trial or trials before. That's what we're going to talk about. I got in touch with, they reached out the Aubrey Stowers case to that community, and they're so thankful that I'm covering that case and that you guys are here. But they also were very thankful how people started coming into their community on Facebook, on the Facebook page. So with that being said, the last 3 videos of mine, people have been flagging them. Yeah, no drama here. That's Jojo, you're right. However, there's been drama because I haven't let these guys into my community and they're flagging my videos, which means 2 things. 1, the videos aren't going to spread around the internet like they should. And number 2, they're completely demonetized. So I just want to let you guys know, if you guys can, like, subscribe, share, gift memberships, anything helps the community, especially right now. But let's not let those people get us down. I mean, they're literally flagging the crap out of my videos, and just, it's taking the monetization and spreading around on the internet. But we'll fight back. We do that as a crime crew, and hopefully they have a heart and they understand we're here to fight. We're here to fight for the victims. We're not here to fight with each other. We're here to get emails, like getting one from Aubrey Stower's community and saying, thank you so much for covering this. Yeah, it's not even me that needs to shake it off, Melanie. It's the videos. They're not getting out there when people are doing that. So if we can ask the haters, whoever doesn't like us, please don't do that for the victims. They're not getting out there. They're just sitting there and dying, and that's not okay. All right. So let's not let that happen. And like I said, you guys can help by liking, sharing, and subscribing. All right. Yeah, there was yeah, Ashton. Luckily, we got them all off. We got all the trolls off of here. But since they couldn't get on here, then they started flagging it, just hitting flag for no reason. So yeah, good to see you all. Happy Monday. Happy trial day to everybody. Everybody's watching trials. It seems like everybody's working. So thank you all for being here. And yeah, today we're covering the Menendez brothers, which is very important because when I watched that Monsters on Netflix, I was like, wow, it just solidifies to me the reason why they shouldn't be in prison any longer. Now, when I watched Monsters, I thought, wow, maybe they did it, and that was part of maybe the Menendez brothers took their parents' lives, and I have to be careful what I say, even more so, took their parents' lives and then spent all the money. Maybe that was part of it, but I don't know. I'm rethinking some things going on. And I think the trauma. Thank you so much, Rosie, with your 99-cent super sticker. I'm thinking that they served their time, but I'm thinking that it was trauma what made them go out and spend and try to get rid of all the anxiety they had. And we'll get into that a little bit more about what's happening in the case. First, I'm going to show you some new news that could get them to walk free any day. So thank you, everybody. Hello and welcome. Any day we can just get a breaking news. Remember that. Let's listen to this.
Family members this week calling for their resentencing as some potential evidence is now coming to light. How will the decision on whether they get resentenced ultimately be made, do you think?
Well, the district attorney has offered to hear this new evidence has come to case and to recommend whether or not that he should be resentenced, whether or not the Menendez brothers should be resentenced. But it's important to remember in this instance, this is not overturning the conviction per se. There are three possible outcomes. One, the conviction could stand and they could remain in jail in prison without the possibility of parole. They could get a reduced sentence, or they could get time served. So we will see, but it's going to be up to the judge to make the decision based.
You hear that? There's three possibilities, and this is so much closer than it's ever been. This has been 35 years, and we're that close to resentencing, letting them stay in again, which I don't think is going to happen, or letting them out. What in the heck? Yeah, the more I see this, the more I start to think they've been married almost the entire time. They should be let out. But why do I say that? We're going to get into it. Why do I say that? And if you guys don't know about the case, let me know and I'll do a recap of it. I think most people know this happened back in 1989 on August 20. They took their parents live in their Beverly Hills mansion. All right.
On the recommendation from the district attorney.
All right, Lisa Bonner, thanks so much for breaking all of those cases down for us. Do appreciate it. And we want to let you know that a new episode of 2020, The Menendez Brothers Reversal of Fortune, is.
Yeah, go check that out as well, y'all. Go check it out because all of the episodes that we've been consuming, that if you don't have Netflix, you can go watch this on 2020. If you have Hulu or regular TV, ABC, thank you, Randy B, for the super sticker. I appreciate you. Yeah, I remember this from back then. I'll tell you right now while I have this on the screen, Lyle and Erik Menendez, the two brothers from Beverly Hills, California, they became infamous for taking their parents' life, Jose and Kitty Menendez. All right. So they've been in jail for a really long time. They did not get arrested on August 20th, 1989. However, Lyle was arrested on March 8th, 1990. He was in Israel at the time and he surrendered to the police upon his return. They were going to try them together, and then they didn't arrest them, but they tried them, and they got tried on July 20th, 1993 was when the first trial began. It's pretty crazy because we're going to talk about the first trial. We're going to talk about the second trial happening 2 years later, all while OJ was happening. And now in 2024, the case resurfaced due to new evidence, potential reevaluation, and a former member of the Puerto Rican boy band Menudo. All right, Roy Rosselló alleged in the 2023 documentary, and if you haven't watched it, you should go watch it, that the Menendez father, SA'd them in the house when he was 14. And he was all tied up with all of those guys that were doing that. All right. So after I saw that documentary, folks, when I saw that Menudo documentary and I saw how they were changing out children as soon as they hit a certain age, oh boy, did I think, oh wow, was I wrong? And I was young. I was young in 1995. I was born in 79. So I was like 15, 16. What's up, Bunny? Honey Bunny, how you doing? All right, so let's pull this down and let's get into the next one. We've got a few clips of a few things. What's next in the Menendez case? And then we're going to watch a News Nation together with some new things that have come out and why I'm here to even talk about what I'm talking about and if we think they're going to get out. I think most of you are on you're on the side of them now. SA is being taken a lot more seriously nowadays. Now back then, if a child was SA'd, people would just say, "Oh no, they're making stories up. That didn't happen," or "Don't talk about it. Let's not talk about it. We don't talk about that stuff." All right. So that's what happened. And honey buddy, I'm glad this is your favorite case to cover, and I'm glad you're here with me today. Let's find out what's next in the case.
Says he needs about 10 days to make his decision. Does that sound about right? What's he weighing here?
I don't know this, but I think, likely the decision has largely been made. Yesterday, after the press conference, the DA's office had the opportunity to speak with family members.
All right. Now, remember this. There was 20 family members. We're not going to watch that whole thing because I'm going to assume you all watched the whole thing. They could be released, Rebecca Wyman. That's right. They could be released. This happened on, I believe, Friday or Saturday, that this news document or this news piece came out. Okay. So it could be that close. They can get released this week. There's a good possibility that can just happen out of nowhere. And that's why I wanted to bring it to you today. It's insane. Within 10 days of last week, and the judge talking to the family, which we're gonna watch about 5-minute clip of the family members in case you missed it. I don't want to watch the whole 45 minutes because you know me, I like to pack a lot of content into my episodes and leave you with homework to do, right? I like everybody to walk away and learn something new. So I'm not gonna watch 45 minutes here, 45. I'm gonna do clips, and then we're gonna go away being like, wow, what just happened? Time served, possibly. Yep. All right. Let me put this again real quick so you know. All right. Now.
Analyst Danny Savalos, good to have you with us. So the district attorney says he needs about 10 days to make his decision. Does that sound about right? What's he weighing here?
I don't know this, but I think, likely the decision has largely been made. Yesterday, after the press conference, the DA's office had the opportunity to speak with family members, which is interesting. But I could show you dozens of criminal defendants' family members who also want them out of prison. So while it's fascinating, it's rarely the most compelling thing that a DA's office considers when reevaluating a decades-old conviction. So I guess good for them, but that doesn't make it all that unusual that the family wants them out, because not even their entire family wants them out, as we've seen.
As we heard in that piece there, a lot of this conversation is resting on the fact that attitude.
That's not a dumb question. No questions are dumb. And as a matter of fact, I'm looking into if they can profit from this. Are they going to be able to profit from this? I think they spent all of their money back then on lawyers. They drained it. So I don't think they have much money to get out to, but can they profit from all of the things that are happening? It depends how they get released. It depends what the judge orders. There's a possibility they can profit of all from Netflix and Hulu and ABC. So is there money waiting for them? Maybe not so much. Is there money coming to them? Possibly, depending on how that happens. Now, you saw the Peacock Deserve Justice of Roy Rosselló, and he needs justice too. I agree. That guy needed to be in jail. Roy, I saw that documentary and it just tore my heart out. Oh, I really did. So, yeah, thank you for saying that. Things to think about.
Attitudes and understandings have changed here about sexual abuse. That certainly matters in the of public opinion, but in a courtroom, how does that attitude come into play here? What does that actually mean for their case?
When you look at the history of different criminal cases, you can see pretty easily just a few decades ago how different society's sensibilities were. And there's no question that we look more closely. We're more protective of children now than we were 35 years ago. We're more conscious of things like abuse, which probably went even more underreported back then. But that being said, we kind of already had a laboratory experiment in this case because they were almost acquitted the first time around when the Menendez brothers were allowed to introduce almost all of the same abuse evidence that's being.
And we're going to go over that. They did introduce almost all of the same evidence and it didn't matter. And then the second time it wasn't allowed in. And so they were convicted. Scary Sherry, thank you so much for the $25 cash app. I always appreciate you. Thank you. They have degrees, they're educated, and they've had wives for nearly the entire time they've been locked up. All right. Yeah, they did lollipop. They spent $700,000 right after they took the parents' lives. The rest went to the lawyer. So that answers your question there. The classic one, what's up? Yo, thank you again, Jojo, for the 5 memberships. Rosie, thank you again. 99 cents, 99 cents. All you folks, it all helps. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. All right.
Being brought up now. There are 2 discrete items that were not admitted or not known at the first trial and are now known, but otherwise at the first trial, they were allowed to introduce evidence of their abuse and they were almost acquitted. The trial ended in a mistrial. The jury was deadlocked. And the second time around, they were not allowed to introduce that abuse evidence and they were convicted. So while society's views on this issue have changed dramatically, even back then, they almost got acquitted.
This case has received so much national attention in just the last few weeks. How much does or should a DA consider how the public feels about this, how the family feels about this? Keeping in mind, this is a DA who's up for re-election soon, so that may weigh on his decision.
Okay, this is just my personal opinion. This seems to be a very politically motivated second look at a conviction. If you asked me on the spectrum as a criminal defense attorney of all the criminal defendants I've known, who are the most deserving of this kind of executive clemency? And that's kind of what it is, packaged as a resentencing. But this is essentially the DA's office undoing a conviction that it secured 30 plus years ago. If you were to
And you know what's messed up? When they got convicted the second time, that's another reason why they got convicted. It was elections. They wanted to look good. They needed to put them behind bars because O.J. Simpson got off. O.J. Simpson got off. They didn't want the riots happening, and they were like, we got to do this. It's a political thing. So it's going to be so interesting if it's another political move. Now, I believe they should be out, but I wonder if it's going to be a political move with what they're talking about. It's so weird. Yeah, this case was massive in Southern California. I grew up down south. I was down there when that happened. I grew up in the LA area. Like I told you guys, the Night Stalker. I lived in an apartment with my mom when the Night Stalker was around. We had to lock our windows even in the summer. So I was all down there. Microwave Cheese, thank you so much for the 10 guilty of crime memberships. Oh man, this is just a crazy, crazy case. Yeah, I'm glad you guys remember this. You might be hearing more real soon if they get out. Jojo, this is for the ones that want to donate but aren't able to. Love our taters. I do love our channel and all the people that support it. Thank you so much. Trigger warning. I'm going to try to keep everything to a minimum with my language, but you guys could chat it up, whatever you want to talk about. I appreciate you all. Thank you. We're going to talk about what went wrong. And again, thank you, Angela, for the $2 super sticker. I didn't get to thank you. We're going to talk about what went wrong.
Asked me who were the most deserving 3-4 weeks ago, the Menendez brothers would have been in the middle to the low end. I mean, there are a lot of people who are at least whodunits who are sitting in prison. There's no question that these defendants or these 2 brothers killed their parents, lied to the police about it, went on a shopping spree, and were only confessed to it when they were finally caught. So look, do we have different views now today than we used to about child abuse? Absolutely. Are there a lot of criminal defendants sitting in prison for life who have been abused? Yes, I would say a large number have been. So good for these defendants if they can get out, but I am surprised because I wouldn't have put them in my top 100 of most deserving clemency petitions.
High-profile cases are a fascinating animal, aren't they?
And you know what else is fascinating is the DA's TikTok right now, the way that he is using it.
We need a whole nother segment.
I know, but just go take a watch if you got a second. It's interesting.
Yep.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks for watching. Stay
again, they may be in another situation where they're let out because of elections and everything else going on. So that's going to be interesting. We're definitely going to be watching out for that. And if you haven't, let's see, if you haven't seen this yet, hold on, let me get to you. If you don't know about the case or you need a refresher, we're going to do that kind of right now. We're not going to refresh about the old stuff, but we are going to go back and see what happened and what went wrong, which is kind of going to refresh you on it if you don't know about it. The last time I covered this case on my channel, it was members only, and surprisingly, people didn't know about it. And thank you, Foxy Amazon, for the 420 right on the dot, guilty of crime membership. Thank you. Someone says they'll be out by Christmas. All right, I do want to show this first before we get any further. And hopefully we make it through all of it today because, I got to pick Miss Reese up. And Reese did not call me today and say anything hurt. So we're on a good track. But a big deal that happened here were the family members that talked for 45 minutes in a press conference. And we're going to watch about 6 minutes of that clip. Kim Black, Erik and Lyle were emotionally, yes, they were essayed and tormented. They were afraid. And now America sees boys can be raped and more. Thanks to Diddy. Thank you, former Menudo member. God bless. Free them. I agree. Back then, they didn't believe that would even happen. And they were like, oh, it's a boy. These are boys. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen to boys. So thank you, Kim. I appreciate you for the $20 super chat. Yeah, very generous of you. This is a heartbreaking story. Therapy wasn't acceptable. And the therapist told on them. I wish they would have talked to the therapist about this. Yeah. Good for Reese. Reese's birthday is next week, y'all. She's going to be 10 years old next week. 10 years old. 10 going on 15. All right, let's get to this. This was a long segment. We cut it down for you. We're going to listen to this on regular speed, and then we're going to get into what the heck happened with the other trials.
Should people understand that you had a change in what you understood about the circumstances surrounding the death of your sister and her husband?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that there was a change, but over the years, we really did know that there was abuse at gut level. But as time goes on and we all talk to each other more and more, and it validates the fears and the gut level reactions that we had that solidify the knowledge that the sexual abuse actually did occur, because that's not something you want to believe. And then once you talk to each other, it becomes more and more obvious.
I understand. So Tamara, when you're thinking through why they did what they did, how do you understand why you don't judge it the way you would under any other circumstances?
Okay, wait.
So when I think through it, there was a comment that I had recently heard from the previous prosecutor who basically characterized it as, if they really killed their parents and they were really remorseful, they would have told us or called the police right away.
And that's not true. We now know that. We now know that having remorse has nothing to do with them calling the cops or telling about it, because back then nobody believed it anyway. And it was really hard to speak about. It was a different time. All right. Thank you, Nancy Jean, for the 99-cent super sticker. I appreciate that. And that's why we're watching part of this, because it's kind of long and they kind of talk a little bit, it drags out. But you guys can go watch the full interview if you haven't. It's out there. It was 45 minutes last week. It's part of what's influencing the district attorney, although maybe it's political. I'm not sure. What matters is that they're heard now and that they should get out, even though they did do this crime. I think 35 years with what happened to them is probably just. Now, we're never arguing that they didn't do it. I'm never going to say they didn't do it. They admitted to do it. They spent $700,000 real quick, and everybody called them spoiled brats that had a motive of just money. Now we're all rethinking it. All right. I was too young to think any further than that back then. Naomi, thank you so much for being a member for 4 months. If this were 2 women, they'd be out. They probably would have never got convicted. Jen's a Gypsy says, I'll meander over and look at it. Please do. Go ahead and meander on over because it's a really slow interview. And you know me, I like to keep things going, keep the information coming. All right. Almost.
However, if you look at how much pain that they endured, how much torture that they endured, how much abuse that they survived through, that came out in the way that they committed the act that they did.
Yeah.
And at that point, given the status of where the family was at, my understanding of the behaviors and the actions after the act was that it was learned behavior of what they knew what to do. And so when I think about it now, it's an act out of pain, it's an act out of misery, and it's something that they were just so desperately wanting to get out of. And while they might have had the means to escape, they also do not want to see it to happen to anybody else, which they knew quite possibly could happen.
And I think that the money did help to cover up some of it. I think that them spending money, we all know that that can be therapeutic, right? Just spending a ton of money. I think they did that. They obviously had remorse and regret, or they wouldn't have went and told the therapist, that which it was the younger, it was Lyle's the younger one, right? He's the one that opened up about it, but I don't think that they didn't have regret. I absolutely think that spending the money helped them to just pacify that time. They were going through a lot of blow at the time. They were buying a bunch of things. They were very young. Now looking back on it, they were very young when I see that and watch the Netflix documentary 10 or docuseries 10 or 8 episodes. Absolutely mind-blowing looking back at it at 45 versus then when I was 10, 15 years old, right? So yeah, definitely interesting. And I wish that it didn't have anything to do with a political thing.
And I do believe,
but it does.
I believe my grandmother has something that she would like to add to that.
Joan?
John, I just want to say that when we finally realized the depth of the awful treatment he was getting from his father, and then my mother admitting that she knew all along and she wasn't dumb.
Kitty?
No, my grandma May.
No, not me.
What, Kitty?
Yeah, Kitty said she knew all along. It's just, it's beyond anything we can even describe right now because it's so painful. And to think what Erik says now, it started when he was 6 years old and he was 18 before he got out of it. But that's a long time. And the judge wants to know why the second trial didn't even occur because the judge wouldn't allow any.
Right.
Well, the second trial occurred, but the second trial they weren't able to bring up the essay in the second trial. Thank you, Jen's Gypsy. I appreciate you. And the older I get, the more experience I've had. I have a friend that his dad was abusing him from like 12 to 16, right in his prime years where he should be dating girls and experiencing that. His dad was abusing him. So when I look back at this and I've learned these things and I've come across these people and I understand this, I really understand that could happen and someone would get so locked up in themselves that they wouldn't say anything. He never told on his father. His father took his own life and almost took his. And then after that, he told. Jennifer Bradley says, I'm 48. I remember the story so well. My granny was always right about true crime. I remember her saying it's deep and dark in the family. I think I've always felt that for them. Yeah, they just admitted that after all these years. Hello, Crime to Remember. How are you? I'm sorry that you've had a messed up day, but you're here now. Rabbit says, "What's up? Here for the eyebrows." How you doing? All right. Yeah, this I can't believe they're saying Kitty knew this, but they didn't say it back then, or we didn't hear it back then.
Violence at all. And that's not fair no matter how you look at it.
Joan, how do you understand Kitty's disposition, Kitty's perspective? If she knew that this was going on, how do you explain why she didn't do anything about it, knowing her the way you did?
I think that she was getting used to the money coming in and the fame and fortune, and I guess her kids were not enough of a sacrifice for her. I don't know what else to say because the Kitty I grew up with would never have allowed that to happen in her home. This was something she had to learn from Jose.
Chris, I think one of the things that the grandma has said to me previously when we've had discussions about this is that Kitty did not know, and this statement is very striking to me, is Kitty did not know or care about the difference between fame or infamy. And so at that point, attention was attention. And so whatever's going on within the home, just deal with it. It'll make you stronger.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to.
All right, and you guys can go finish watching that. I thought I'd introduce it to you just in case you wanted to go slow down and watch something that's chill. That was very slow for me. Again, I like that. I'm into the as much information as you can. I can watch like 3 things at once and still be typing an email. That's either ADHD, ADD, or I don't know, but maybe it's too many Red Bulls. Who knows? But I need constant information coming, and that was a little bit slow. So I'm just waiting for this to. The internet's also slow today. I'm waiting for it to come up, and then we're gonna talk about the Menendez brothers and what went wrong in the trials. And I think this is going to be really good for those of you that are waiting to find out. And we're going to talk about, but waiting to find out, we have like 7 more days left before we actually find out what's going to happen with this. Are they going to get out? Are they going to get retried? Right. Randy B. Yep. And I don't even have a Red Bull right now, and I'm all over the place. I've got to have. Yeah, I'm going to speed it up now. I'm not going to speed it up on this one, but this one I'm speeding up because, boy, those ladies were talking slow. Yeah, I always multitask. I use ADHD or ADD to multitask. It's a superpower. You can multitask. All right. I think his dad started when he was 5. He was starting to touch them and escalating. And if you watch the Monsters documentary, more goes into, I got people laughing here, more goes into the Monsters docuseries because it tells even more. Even though it makes them look like a monster, it tells a lot more about the things that went on in detail. So you guys, if you don't have Netflix, you really should get it just to watch the 10-part series. Just go get a free trial for 7 days and just watch it all like I did. I mean, I have Netflix, but I'm saying I watched it all in like a day and a half. So Monsters or Misunderstood. I think a little bit of both. They still blew their parents' faces off, y'all. When you see the way they took their parents' life, I know that they wanted to get back at them, but it was brutal. It was brutal.
Clearer than ever that they were likely sexually abused by their father, including some new evidence. That doesn't mean they didn't do it, but it does mean they could have, maybe should have, gotten a much shorter sentence. And with 2 new Netflix shows about the case, pressure's been mounting on LA DA George Gascon, including from the victims' own families. He's now announced this week he'll decide within days whether to recommend resentencing for the brothers. And it now seems likely he'll recommend they be set free. Now, a judge would still have to.
Now, I agree that it was brutal and there was hatred. But like I said, I have a friend that, hey, for years, I did tattoo therapy on, all right? So he came to me and he got tatted up. arms, chest, worst parts that hurt the most. He came to me for tattoo therapy, and he talked to me about the abuse that happened to him. So he talked he talked about that, but he didn't take his father's life. So we want to teach these youths, we want to teach children now. Hopefully it doesn't happen to them, but if it does, we want them to talk to us. We want them to talk to a teacher, talk to us, talk to somebody. We don't want them to do that. That is very brutal, and it ruined their life and many others. I do know what they went through, but I do know what my friend went through, and he could have done that as well, but he didn't. He got therapy, tattoo therapy, and it does work. Therapy from a psychologist, a psychiatrist, do some tattoo therapy, but I don't recommend taking your parents' life or anybody's life. I will recommend tattoo therapy, though. Definitely. Definitely, definitely.
Agree. Tonight, the hour looking back and forward at the case in the wake of all of these developments this week. First, here's our Laura Ingle with the latest twists and turns, a look back at this week's news and how we got here.
I never thought this day would come. I stand here today with a heavy heart and also with hope.
35 years after her sister and her sister's husband were brutally slain in their Beverly Hills home, Joan Vandermolen is begging for the release of their killers, her nephews, Lyle and Erik Menendez.
None.
It is the latest twist in a decades-old saga, now reaching a boiling point. The Menendez brothers have long maintained they were driven to kill by their father's sexual abuse and their mother's complicity. A defense at the time widely mocked by many in the media, and which
No, I still agree that there's different outlets. My friend didn't do this recently. This was, 20 years ago that this, let me see, this was more than 20 years ago that I'm 45 and he was between 12 and 16. So this was almost 30 years ago that happened to my friend, almost the same time that it happened to them. So what I'm saying is I never want to put a message out there to say, even if you hate them and you have no other options, take their lives. That's what I don't want to say. I want to say, reach out, get help. I do not condone what they did, and I cannot. When I watch this and I see how brutal the lives what they did, how they completely took their faces off and completely disfigured them. I understand the anger, but I don't want anybody to do that to anybody, because it just ruins your life. Look at what their lives. They could have been out and been free had they told. So it's just I wish they would have told, and I wish they wouldn't have taken their parents' lives. Now, maybe if their parents weren't rich, they wouldn't have said, "Oh, they're rich, we could take all their money," and it would have pacified them, because it does pacify. Money pacifies. Look what it did to Kitty, their mom. It pacified her, and she let the dad do this to keep up the lifestyle. Who knows? I just don't want to justify what they did.
a jury roundly rejected, but one their family believes could finally free them.
For many years, I struggled with terms with what happened to my sister's family. It was a nightmare none of us could have imagined. But as details of Lyle and Erik's abuse came to light, it became clear that their actions, while tragic, were the desperate response of two boys trying to survive the unspeakable cruelty of their father. As their aunt, I had no idea of the extent of the abuse they suffered at the hands of my brother-in-law.
Again, this is powerful what the family's saying here. And again, don't get me wrong. If somebody ever did something like that to Reese, I've already told you guys that I'd take my favorite Smith & Wesson and go shoot off their parts. I said that already. I told you guys, but I don't want to justify that to you, because I would shoot someone's parts off if they did that to my daughter. My son's older now. I don't think that would happen to him, but I would do the same thing. But I can't condone that on my channel, and I can't say that I wish that these guys wouldn't have told, and I wish they were out. So the message I'm saying is, yeah, I don't want that to happen to anybody, but do the right thing.
None of us did. But looking back, I can see the pure intention that their father had instilled on them. They were just children who could have been protected, and were instead brutalized
don't do what
in
I
the most
do.
horrific ways.
Hours after Vandermolen's impassioned plea at a press conference attended by dozens of other Menendez family members, the Los Angeles District Attorney announcing he will make a decision on whether to recommend resentencing the brothers by the end of this month, which, if a judge agrees, could lead to Erik and Lyle seeing daylight outside of prison's walls for the first time since their arrest in 1990. Yet there is one family member who is urging the DA to keep the brothers locked away. Kitty Menendez's brother, Milton.
See, this is amazing. I'm so glad. Thank you guys for being here. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't. Please share when we're done, because this episode, I've packed so much into it. If somebody doesn't know what you're talking about and they don't remember this case or they don't know it, this is going to give you all the information you need in this episode. What happened then, what's happening now, who wants them out and who doesn't want them out, and then let's go. We're ready to find out if they're going to get out or not in the next, let's say, 6 or 7 days. The evil brother, right?
Anderson.
And Mr. Anderson firmly believes that Jose had not molested either of the boys. And he believes, based on the evidence again, that it was only when they learned, Erik and Lyle learned that their father was going to take them out of the will, Erik and Lyle went to purchase shotguns.
That is what a jury believed in March of 1996 when they sensationally rejected the brothers' abuse claims and locked Erik and Lyle away for life without the possibility of parole for the murders of their parents. And that would have been where this story ended. If not for a twist neither Hollywood nor the rabid tabloid media of the 90s could have ever predicted. The Menendez brothers would rocket into the social media age as TikTok stars, with a fan following among a younger generation, armed with a new understanding of sexual assault and abuse, new language to talk about, and a willingness to reckon with perceived injustices from the past.
The world has changed, it's evolved. People have come to the realization that men can be victims as well.
Shame on the reporters who are older generations and just think that the Menendez brothers case is just something sensational. No. Future generations or past generations and our older generations, you need to stop the dysfunction of what you are causing of a rape culture in our society.
And I agree with this lady and all of you that are with me today. I agree they should be out now. I absolutely do. I just had to give my warnings to those. I don't recommend doing what I would do. So yeah, and thank you, Lori Loves Life. Loved your channel since Duty Ron. I appreciate you so much. Yeah, they have been model inmates. They've been married almost the entire time. They were forced. They were forced to be teen boys that the father wanted. They had no identity. I agree. Children must be protected at all times. If you've learned anything from the Madeline Soto case and Jen Soto with that microwave cheese, look at that ugly potato. And since you have that ugly potato, there's my trigger warning with this ugly potato. I agree. I definitely agree. Time served already. That I will agree with, or I wouldn't even be running this on my channel right now.
I do not think that Erik and Lyle deserve to spend the rest of their life in prison at all. We also know a lot more now about what happens in the music industry and in the film industry and what people with money and power do. So now it's not so unfathomable that a man like this would do something to his sons. But back then they were ridiculed and called liars.
As social media momentum grows, new evidence suddenly emerges. On May 2nd of last year, explosive allegations from former Menudo boy band member Roy Rosselló, claiming Jose Menendez drugged and raped him when he was just 14 years old and signed to RCA Records. Rosselló speaking out in a documentary on Peacock.
I know what he did to me in his house. That's the man here that raped me. This guy, that's the pedophile.
How old were you there?
14 years old.
And on May 23rd, 2023, an attorney for the Menendez brothers filing a new petition asking a judge to vacate Erik and Lyle's convictions. Revealed in those court documents, a handwritten letter from Erik Menendez to his cousin Andy, dated about 8 months before the murders, alluding to abuse by his father. It reads in part, "I've been trying to avoid Dad."
Now, real quick, I gotta say, Honey Bunny, many people didn't like Leslie Abramson, and you know why? Because she was a woman and she had a voice. These are different times. They're different times. I mean, I'm even me. Okay, going into the tattoo industry when I did at 18 It was all men, and women weren't respected. I was looked at like, hey, who are you going to sleep with to do it, to be able to tattoo? Even now, I'm in the engineering. I'm a COO or managing director of a mechanical engineering company, and there's 9 men to 1 female, and I'm that female that runs that mechanical engineering firm. Females, males, we're barely getting there. We're just starting to get there, and that's why Leslie Abramson, people didn't like her. She worked really hard, but she was a loudmouth, like me.
It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I'm afraid. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle. Yet it's not until October 3rd of this year, with Los Angeles District Attorney George Gascon locked in a tight re-election race, and as interest and public pressure on the case crests with not 1 but 2 Netflix series, that the DA announces a full review of Erik and Lyle's murder convictions, including potential resentencing.
None of this information has been confirmed. We are not, at this point, ready to say that we either believe or do not believe that information. But we're here to tell you that we have a moral and an ethical obligation to review what is being presented to us.
And now members of the Menendez family who stood by the brothers since their arrest are once again hopeful, seizing the moment where it appears that public opinion, politics, and possible new evidence will change the course of fate.
The truth is, Lyle and Erik were failed by the very people who should have protected them, by their parents, by the system, by society at large. When they stood trial, the whole world was not ready to believe boys could be raped, or that young men could be victims of sexual violence. Today, we know better. We know that abuse has long-lasting effects, and victims of trauma sometimes act in ways that are very difficult to understand.
Indeed, the world is a much different place than it was 35 years ago, when Erik and Lyle Menendez were once golden boys of 1980s Beverly Hills. With the mansion, the money, and together with their parents, seemingly the perfect family.
And that's what everybody saw back then. That's all they saw. And yeah, Scary Jerry, times are a changing is right. But even when I looked at it through my eyes, being, in 1980, or was it 89? I just saw it as, wow. I looked at the story. What brats. They were spoiled. They tried to steal their money. I didn't see the other side because I had no idea that kind of stuff happened. I didn't know anything about that. And most people didn't know about that. Nobody talked about it. Yeah, they had no identity. They have it now. A sad, long journey. I hope that they get out. I really do. I think their time should be served.
Family. Living a life of privilege, thanks to multimillionaire father Jose Menendez, a wildly successful RCA Records exec, and his glamorous, devoted wife, Kitty. With no outward sign that something sinister was brewing behind that wrought iron gate and those perfectly trimmed hedges, a saga of abuse, rage, and dark family secrets still unraveling so many years later. The brothers speaking out together for the first time in years in a recent Netflix documentary, The Menendez Brothers.
Everyone asks why we do it. Maybe now people can understand the truth. My name is Erik Menendez. My name is Lyle Menendez, calling you from Donovan Correctional Facility. Lyle is the only person that has ever protected me. What happened that night is very well known, but so much hasn't been told.
It was the night of August 20th, 1989, when Lyle, then 21, called 911, sobbing to the dispatcher that someone had killed his parents. The eviscerated bodies of Jose and Kitty Menendez lie nearby, both ripped.
I mean, look at that gore. And that's only a part of it, everybody. That's a small part of this. If you guys do watch the documentary, or it's a docuseries, it's not a documentary because it's a lot of things that make the brothers look really, like, they call them monsters, right? So, I mean, how we see it, it looks like everybody sees something different, obviously. But I mean, when you look at that scene and you're a juror back then, what are you going to think? Yeah, but the brothers are locked up in the same place now, but they've had a long journey and they've been split up. It's been a really long journey. All right.
Ripped apart by shotgun blasts delivered at close range.
Yes, police.
What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem?
Someone killed my parents.
Pardon me?
Someone killed my parents.
What? Who? Are they still there?
Yes.
The people.
No.
Were they shot?
Hey, man,
were they shot?
Yes.
Police arrived to a grisly scene, blood and brain matter. Kitty had been shot trying to crawl away. The brothers are hysterical, crying, and are not initially treated as suspects by authorities.
I told the detectives that I saw smoke, and it would have been impossible if I didn't do it. It's pretty incredible. We were not arrested that night.
Yet the police were watching as the brothers began spending their murdered parents' money days after their killings on Rolex watches, a Porsche, designer clothing, high-end cars, an elite tennis coach, real estate, and even a restaurant. A $1 million shopping spree in the span of 6 months. Bizarre behavior, and for prosecutors, it was
700,000. Now it's been up to $1 million, but they really did. I mean, they just blew money as fast as they could. Again, I think it was therapy. They had the money. It's like we all go shopping, right? You get in an argument with your husband or your wife, and you're like, I'm going to go spend money online. But I really do now, looking back, think that's why they did that. I don't think that. No, I don't. I know that they didn't do that for the money. They did that for what happened to him. Yeah, all the money is gone. Absolutely. The question is, will they get it back? That was one hell of a lot of money back then. You're right.
all building a motive.
What they wanted was their lifestyle. They wanted freedom. And they wanted to be free from the idea that their father would somehow disinherit them.
3 days later, Erik,
does.
now a jet-setting pro tennis player funded with money from his parents' estate, turns himself in at LAX. In the following 2 years, prosecutors and defense attorneys are locked in a legal battle over whether the brothers' confidential therapy sessions can be used at trial. In August of 1992, the California Supreme Court ruling 2 of the tapes are admissible. The first trial begins on July 20th, 1993. The brothers are tried together, but with separate juries for each, both Lyle and Erik testifying in court. And from the stand, they paint a graphic and horrific story of sexual abuse perpetrated at times by both parents, beginning in childhood, and of a domineering father who ruled and abused through force, even death threats, leaving Lyle and Erik, in their words, trapped with no way out and in fear for their lives.
Hey, break me.
Did you cry?
Yes.
Did you bleed?
Yes.
Were you scared?
Very.
Did you ask him not to?
Yes.
How did you ask him not to?
I just told him. I don't.
Yeah, looking back at this now, they literally would have had to been award-winning actors. They would have to be award-winning actors. They also talked about themselves with each other. The older one, Erik, said he was abusing Lyle, and he went into that whole thing. Yeah, Tom says, Tom, you say, I hope they get out, but I'm not convinced they will. I'm not convinced that they won't get out. That's why I'm here today. I'm really not convinced that they won't get out. Now, the Son of Sam law doesn't allow you to profit from your crimes while in prison. But if they get out with all the docuseries and documentaries and ABC specials and books they can write, there's no stopping that. Yeah, that really wasn't a lot over 8 months, but if you think about it, but the $1 million back then is a lot more than it'd be worth a lot more now if you took that, if you valued it. That is a lot.
Was it you telling Lyle about something that was happening?
My dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
My dad.
Can I ask a leading question?
My dad had been molesting me.
And did you want something from your brother? Is that why you told him?
I wanted to stop him.
The brother's cousin, Andy Cano, testifies that years before the murders, Erik told him of the abuse.
Did Erik begin a conversation with you?
Yes.
And do you recall how the conversation began?
Well, yes, I do.
Okay, would you tell us how it began?
He asked me if my dad ever gave me massages. Well, he told me his father was massaging his dick.
And he used that word?
Yes, he did. At that point, we were both trying to figure out whether what was happening to him was normal. He wanted to know that if this happened to every kid, with a father and son relationship.
Prosecutors suggest Cano is lying. It will be years later, and only after Cano's untimely death, that the letter Eric wrote to him about the abuse will be discovered. The Menendez trial.
Now, they didn't bring it into the second trial. Now, and Hellcat, I can't imagine what they endured either, because Eric was 18 at the time, but Lyle was even younger. But he did have relationship with men, according to him. So it does make me wonder if they get out. It makes me wonder if they're going to continue that being married. It's much easier to be married when you're in prison. You're not going any right. A lot of women like to be with men that are locked up. They know they're not going anywhere. They have full control. But when Lyle gets out, I'm still not convinced that he's a straight man. He definitely, and it doesn't have anything to do with the abuse. I can tell you right now, for me, my I don't know what you even want to call that, but me being married to a woman, I never got abused. It has nothing to do with abuse. It's not a choice. It's just who I am, right? So I think Lyle was always Lyle's older. Okay, Eric was 18. Sorry, I get them confused. All right, I thought Lyle. Which one's which, y'all? Which one's the older one? Eric's the youngest. I thought Lyle was the youngest. Okay, I got it backwards for a minute. One of them, the youngest one, Eric. Yeah, they had famous prison mates, but he was also dating boys at the time. And I wonder when he gets out, what's going to happen with that? Or is he going to stay married? Are they both going to stay married? Was it a prison thing? It's going to be definitely an interesting wrecking ball that comes out. Going back into society after that long, it's going to be interesting.
Is the first time the abuse defense is used in a murder trial, and prosecutors aggressively push back.
And it's the people's position that the sexual abuse is here to make the parents look so bad that you don't care that they're dead.
But jurors are deadlocked, and on January 13th, 1994, Eric's case ends in mistrial.
All right, there we go. So I just needed their faces. Eric is 18 and Lyle was 21 on August 20th, 1989, at the beginning when it first started. And let's see, 6 years later is actually when their second trial started in 1995. So 18 and 21 going into it. That's the younger brother. The older brother actually had a wig. There was a big deal to that. He had a toupee. So 18-year-old and 21. I need to correct myself.
Later, so does Lyle's, with jurors unable to agree on whether to find either brother guilty of first or second degree murder or lesser charges of manslaughter. At the crux of the disagreement, the jury split on just how bad the abuse was and whether any of it justified two young men killing their mother and father brutally and seemingly without remorse.
You feel this is a victory for you?
Now, I don't care about their sexual preferences either, but here's the thing. I'm talking about a struggle going to happen. And he'll probably want us to know, Eric will probably, he was very open about relationships that he had in prison. So it just makes me wonder and of course, nobody cares now, but back then they did. He wasn't allowed to be that way. His father was like, be a man, whatever. I wonder how that's going to play out if he gets out. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to predict. So if they get out and we come back and do this story later, what we think's going to happen. That's all. It doesn't matter about that.
I've already expressed my views on that point. A victory is that my client was free.
We are going to be trying the case a second time. Some cases take more than one opportunity, and I am pleased that at least we have that second opportunity. Had they come back with voluntary manslaughter, you would have seen an entirely different reaction from me because I would have been utterly disappointed.
Are you going to pursue the death penalty again?
I have every intention of going forward with the death penalty, yes.
Prosecutors wasting little time, and on October 11th, 1995, a retrial is underway. This one, a stark contrast to the dramatic scenes that played out to a nationally televised audience in the first trial. No cameras, no more weeping defendants, or near constant stream of shocking family secrets pouring from the witness stand. A new judge now vastly.
And I hope you guys are enjoying this today. I hope you like the content that I'm putting out there for you all. I found this documentary style News Nation clip that came out a couple days ago because I really wanted you to see what was happening. I wanted you to get a good sense of everything, compile what happened before, what's happening now in this kind of documentary style clip. So thank you. I'm glad that you are Scary Sherry and all of you, because a lot of people really don't know exactly what happened, all the ins and outs. And if you don't have Netflix, you can watch it here. Erica's totally confused. Yeah. The follow-up in the case, it's because we want to know if they're going to get out.
Whittling down the ability of the defense to introduce key evidence of alleged abuse. This second time around, the defense would call far fewer witnesses, and only one brother, Erik, would testify. Prosecutors, too, taking a different tack, labeling the abuse defense as the abuse excuse and attacking the brothers' claims as outright lies. The decision in front of the jury now whittled down to either first-degree murder or acquittal. Manslaughter no longer on the table.
Do you think he could do it? Do you think that an actor, a professional actor, in 3.5 years, with only one script to study and one purpose in his life, could get ready and act? Well, this defendant is more motivated than any Academy Award seeker because he's motivated by things outside of praise or money or promise. This defendant is fighting for his life. Now, if he was willing to lie...
Both of them were being essayed, Jamila. So they both were essayed, and they took their parents' life with shotguns. So yes, now people believe them.
Lie and lie to everybody in town. Why, in God's name, should you listen to anything he has to say?
They had a joint style and a joint philosophy of child rearing. And that style and philosophy was that their children were not human beings to treasure and to love and to support and to appreciate for who they are, but they were objects to use for their own purposes. Their purposes of sexual pleasure, of sadistic pleasure, they loved to frighten them together, to vent their frustration and anger on.
And on March 20th, 1996, it took jurors just 16 hours of deliberation to convict.
I remember when the verdict came down, it was first degree. First degree meant spending the rest of my life in prison for the next 50, 60 years. It was so daunting that I was in shock.
Just before the brothers are sent to prison from county jail to begin serving life without parole, they sit down with Barbara Walters in an interview the brothers now call unusual.
I'm just a normal kid.
Oh, Erik, you're a normal kid who killed your parents.
I know.
And you still say you're a normal kid?
Well, I didn't have normal experiences, but I am.
Erik and Lyle would be separated for the next 22 years, but the case would simmer on. Fascination around it would linger, and their family would not give up the fight. Another twist of fate may be just around the corner.
No jury today would issue such a harsh sentence without taking their trauma into account. Lyle and Erik have already paid a heavy price, discarded by a system that failed to recognize their pain. It's time to give them the opportunity to live the rest of their lives free from the shadow of their past.
Thank you to Laura Ingle for that. Still ahead, the Menendez brothers in their own words, the testimony from Lyle.
Your mom and dad?
Yes.
All right. So for those of you that just got here or came in late, this is where we're going to go back. We've talked about the new evidence that may set them free. And the new evidence that may set them free is the Menudo member that came forward and said that their father also abused him at 14 years old. He was taken to their mansion. That's a big key right there. So if you saw that Menudo documentary, when it hit the Netflix or wherever that came on, that came big. And all of a sudden he wrote a letter to the judge or to whoever he needed to write a letter to. That's the key evidence right there. That's going to show that their parents did do that to him. And they were separated at first. They were separated because people thought they were troublemakers. They were going to get into nefarious things. They were going to escape, which I think that they wanted to escape at first when they were in the first set of jails or prisons together. Okay, yeah, there it is. That was when all of this hit, and we all said, "Whoa, we gotta look at this case again." So now we're gonna go back. If you hadn't seen this before, we're gonna see some clips of them testifying. You tell me, was this fake? Were they able to act this good?
In August 20th, 1989.
I don't think so.
Did you and your brother kill your mother and father? Did you kill them for money? Is that no?
No.
Did you kill them because you wanted to pay them back for the way they had treated you?
No.
Why did you kill your parents?
Because we were afraid.
Lyle Menendez then detailed the alleged sexual abuse, which he said began before he was 7 years old.
Just started with, after sports practices, he would massage me. And we would have these talks, and he would show me, and he would fondle me, and he would ask me to do the same with him, and I would touch him, and we would undress.
Where would this take place?
In my bedroom.
And how did it change?
Just became more involved.
What do you mean more involved?
We would be in the bathroom, and he would put me on my knees, and he would guide me, all my movements, and I would have oral sex with him.
Did you want to do this?
Of course not.
Lyle would also be cross-examined, challenged on much of his account, saying that it was after confronting his father about the sexual abuse of his brother Erik that they felt their father would kill them, so they acted first.
Now, I'm going to be frank with you all. I thought that I doubted their story too. Back then, I did not have the information that we have now. And I saw this, I saw the pictures of the mansion, and I thought, wow, these just really are spoiled boys that wanted their father's inheritance sooner. I doubted them, but I didn't have the information that I have now. I do think that they should be let out. I do think that there's a good possibility of them being let out. And now that I'm seeing this, again, older, having more experiences, and the information we do know, the music industry is all messed up, and that's an understatement.
Testimony, Mr. Menendez. That after you came into the room, through the doors here, on the left part of Exhibit 20, you started firing at your father, who was in the area right here where his body was later found, correct?
Right.
And then what did you do next?
I just kept firing.
When you put the gun up against the back of his head and you pulled the trigger, did you go around behind the sofa to do that?
Well, I didn't put it up against his head on purpose.
When you went in the area behind the sofa and you unintentionally put the gun against your father's head and pulled the trigger, where was your mother?
Objection, state testimony.
She was, my memory is not good on this, but I think I remember her. Seemed to be around the side of the coffee table.
What was she doing?
In my mind, she was just sort of sneaking around the side of the coffee table and going in that direction.
You said your mother was sneaking. Is that correct? You just used that term, sneaking. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did you think that she was going to do something sneaky to you when she was crawling behind the coffee table?
No, I thought that we were in danger still.
And this is after you shot your father in the head, correct?
Right.
Then Erik Menendez took the stand, and under direct examination by his attorney, the then 22-year-old described the physical abuse he said he endured from his father, Jose.
Had he hit you before in your life?
Yes.
Had he done other physical things that hurt you when angry?
Yes.
What kind of thing? What was the thing he most typically did when he was angry?
Most typically, he slapped me.
And what about pushing your body into objects? Would he do that?
Yeah, he'd throw me a lot.
Throw you a lot?
Yes, he'd throw me into the wall or into the bed or into the desk or into the glass or any place.
He once threw you into the glass door, didn't he?
Yes.
Broke the door?
Shattered the glass.
And then threw you again?
Yeah.
And just as Lyle did, Erik described in graphic detail years of sexual abuse at the hands of his father.
And now, see, we didn't back then, a lot of people didn't have the opportunity to know much about this. We didn't know that the music industry was like this. This is the first real generation after 30 years of us hearing all of this, right? I mean, Diddy's been doing this for years, and now we're like, oh yeah, everybody was doing that. We knew about it, but nobody did anything about it. So this is the generation where it's starting to come out. We're starting to believe them. And The reason I'm doing this and the reason we're here to do this is because, yeah, the prosecutor does still, of course, the prosecutor still says, still maintaining the abuse didn't happen. But if one person that sees this, that it can get to one person, let's say Wyatt comes on here and Wyatt's friend comes on there. I'm using Wyatt as an example, but let's say somebody comes on here and they see this and they say, oh man, I better not do that because I don't want to be in jail for 35 years until they figure out what happened. I want to, oh wow, I seen this. I'm going to tell so that they can find out and they can be arrested. I don't want to do time. They would get a ton of money too. They would have got a ton of money for all the documentaries. They'd have had their own money. So that's why we're doing this, is that so somebody will see this, see something and say something, and they won't have to resort to this because they won't feel alone.
But he also explained how his father, Jose, rationalized it to his son.
Almost all the times with the sex, I would say to myself, I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to stop it. As soon as he comes into my room, I'm going to fight him. I'm going to jump on him. I imagine myself on a ledge, jumping down on him, all kinds of things to stop the sex. And whenever he came into the room, I just crumbled and I couldn't do it. He said it was something that was supposed to happen. And he often referred to ancient times in the Romans and the Greeks and how they used to have sex before battle and talk about how this was natural and this was supposed to happen.
Mr. Menendez, you've heard
that part is sick. When you watch the docuseries and now going back, I didn't realize what they were talking about with the Romans and the Greeks, and his dad was telling them that's what they're supposed to do to be men. Absolutely disgusting. And the toothbrushes and the brushes and the objects. I didn't know what any of that meant back then, and now I do. It is kind of like self-defense. And you know what? It is kind of like self-defense, but nobody believed them. It's a parole. It's possible they just amend the sentence to life with parole. Yeah, it is. But that means they'll get out.
the testimony of your brother that you and he killed your parents on August 20th, 1989. Did you not?
Yes, we did.
And
I didn't know that.
What do you believe was the originating cause of you and your brother ultimately winding up shooting your parents?
Me telling.
You telling what?
Me telling Lyle that.
You telling Lyle what? Was it you telling Lyle about something that was happening?
My dad.
Okay.
My dad had been molesting me.
And did you want something from your brother? Is that why you told him?
I wanted to stop him.
Were you seeking help from your brother?
Yes.
Erik also testified that he told his father about that conversation with his brother about the abuse.
He was saying that he had told me never to tell Lyle and that he had warned me not to do that. And now he said that Lyle was going to tell everyone and that it was my fault. And now Lyle was going to tell everyone and he was not going to let that happen.
He was not going to let what happen?
He said he wasn't going to let Lyle tell. Well, he didn't say he wasn't going to let Lyle anyone. He just said he wasn't going to let that happen. Lyle telling anyone.
Now you say he said he told you in the past what?
Well, he had told me never, ever to tell anyone.
And did he ever tell you what the consequence would be of telling anyone?
He would kill me.
But even if the jury believed everything about the abuse from his father, what he described as the complicity by his mother, how was it still self-defense to kill them?
I went into the room, the gun went off, and there was fire, there was smoke, and it was so chaotic that I just didn't. I don't have a great memory of it.
And I think part of this too, if you actually watch the trial or you see the evidence, you see the crime scene photos and where the parents were shot, that's another problem with this. Is I wish they would have been a little more forthcoming. I do give them credit for all the things that they did, but if you look at the photos and you look at the DNA and you look at the way the shotguns were positioned and where the parents were, they didn't quite tell exactly what they didn't exactly tell their positions, and it didn't line up. So I really want you guys to go watch that. It was hard for them back then, and I think Leslie, their attorney, told them some of this. They helped them fill in the blanks, but it doesn't match with the ballistics and the DNA. So that's a problem. That's a problem with this too.
Entered the room first, correct?
Yes.
Now you say the gun went off. Did you fire that gun?
No, I fired the gun.
Now you shot until your gun was no longer loaded, correct?
I shot everything I had.
And then
went back and reloaded.
Hear or see after you had finished firing all of your ammunition?
I heard a noise coming from what was my mom.
Would you describe for the jury what sound you heard? How would you characterize that sound?
Total. I guess I would characterize it as a moaning simply because she was dying, and
then they went and reloaded. That's the problem. Yeah, they were lying about it because ballistics don't lie. When you look at ballistics and you look at and you map a room out and you say it was facing this way and you go back and you reload a shotgun after you blew somebody's face off. Now I understand why. I already told you don't do what I do what I say, right? I would do the same thing. I would go shoot someone's parts off too. But it just doesn't match. And I wish they would have told the truth about that, because they literally just, like, his mom didn't have a face anymore. The dad was hit from behind. And yeah, I agree, full of rage, but they already told the truth. Why not tell the truth about this? That's where there's a huge disconnect.
And that's what freaked me out, and I just wanted to get away. But I can't remember how it was or the way it was.
Was your mother crying?
No, it wasn't a crying sound.
You indicated that your father said no as you entered and started to shoot?
Yes.
Did your mother ever say anything?
No, she never said a word.
She didn't have a chance to say anything?
I guess not.
Up next, that was all from the first trial, where there were hung juries. It was the second trial.
All right, this is a
verdicts in the first case. Now, I covered.
Yeah, this is a big deal now. So thank you guys all for being here. I appreciate you so much. Yeah, they were having a huge disconnect. They were in a frenzy. I agree, but I just wish, and if anybody does find themselves in that predicament, if you're going to tell the truth, just tell the whole dang truth, because nowadays forensics are going to get you anyway. All right, now we go into the second part. The first one, they were very close, almost doesn't count, but the jurors were split. So then they had to do another trial. In the second trial, none of the abuse was able to come out. They didn't let that happen. Yeah, the Menudo guy is still struggling. I believe anybody that gets abused is probably still struggling. And yes, Jose was abused as a child too. His father, or whoever abused him, also told him that bull-ass story that was like, beat on your chest, you're a man, bend over, take it. This is how we learn how to be abused. All right, so trigger warning for anybody. We're going to go into the second part of the trial. And, this is already trigger. This case is very triggering. But I appreciate you guys all for being here. 191 people in chat. Thank you for supporting my channel. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you guys so much. Let's keep going.
The second trial, and that one was different from the first. For starters, camera, which led to much of the public interest in the first place, no longer allowed in the courtroom. And though this second trial had the same judge, Judge Stanley Weisberg, his instructions surrounding the case were different this time around. The second trial, single jury, rather than one for each brother. Where in the first case, they had 4 different charges to consider: first-degree murder, second-degree murder, voluntary manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter. This time around, it was just first-degree murder or nothing for the killing of the mother, Kitty. They could consider manslaughter for the father.
I agree.
The number of witnesses allowed to testify for the brothers also dropped to 64 as opposed to 101 that testified in the first, but limited in what they could testify to surrounding any alleged abuse that may have taken place. Lyle Menendez even chose not to testify. So it obviously seems that these changes affected the outcome, but I still got a lot of questions. Let's bring them to Jesse Weber, attorney anchor for the Law and Crime Network, News Nation legal contributor. He's been studying the transcripts, the history of the case, following these cases.
Thanks, Jesse. All right, let's keep going. Yeah, you guys, I'm right there with everybody. I just don't want to see anyone be in prison for 35 years when you could just not have to do all that. But yeah, we can agree to disagree with that. I would do the same thing. So who am I to say? But I don't want to tell somebody that so that they'll go out and do that. I'd rather say don't do it, tell somebody, and no child should be abused. Hashtag arrest Jen Soto, even though we're not on that case right now. Any parent that's letting their child be abused should be arrested immediately.
Closely. Jesse, good to see you. All right, so how would you characterize the biggest differences between the cases? Meaning, the option for manslaughter seems like it was a huge thing in the first case, but in the second case, they still could consider manslaughter for Jose Menendez, but rejected it?
So the brothers had a very big advantage in the first trial. They could argue imperfect self-defense.
What is that?
That is saying we have a genuine, honest, yet unreasonable belief that our life is in imminent danger. And they could put on a lot of evidence to support that. The judge, though, sided with the prosecution the second time around. The prosecution said, and the judge agreed, even if you assume the brothers were abused, okay, where was the imminent danger, right? The idea that at that moment, they weren't in fear of their lives. They might have had a general fear of their parents, but these parents were unarmed. They were watching television. The brothers went to get the guns in San Diego, came back, loaded it. So you can't argue imperfect self-defense. When it came to Kitty, they really didn't have much of a defense. In fact, Lyle seemed to rely a lot on Eric's witnesses because, as you mentioned, Lyle didn't testify. And because he didn't testify,
No, I was not okay about Lorena Bobbitt. But if you look at the circumstances, again, it's one of those things. When I watched that documentary on Lorena Bobbitt, I'm like, dear Lord, that was all just circumstantial. Why she didn't get in trouble was at the time and the women's movement, and women were tired of men abusing them and cheating on it. It's all political. And it seems like this is coming down to political again, which we don't condone. We don't condone something being persuaded because of political, right? Because of political movement or how it's going to be swayed. I don't, yeah. So I definitely don't condone that at all. And that's why we come here. That's why we talk. That's why we always agree to disagree. I love you guys so much that you guys can come here and have a safe chat and talk about things like this. Hello, New York baby boomer. Y'all don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't, and share with your friends and the community. Thank you. Membership gifting, become a membership. We're doing a members only this week on Friday, either Thursday or Friday, but probably on Friday. So thank you. Get your membership so you can be in the members only. That's is that Jesse Weber? Whose hair? You guys are funny. Let me keep going.
he didn't lay a foundation for a lot of experts and witnesses to come in. He couldn't testify. He didn't testify about his state of mind. So he couldn't argue I was abused or this happened. And so he was relying a lot on Eric's testimony and Eric's witnesses. And even to this day, I can't tell you exactly what Lyle's defense was. It was putting blame on Kitty, that she didn't do enough to protect them. Now, the brothers could argue that they killed their father in heat of passion, which is a type of manslaughter, but they couldn't argue self-defense. I think that was a big difference.
But did they argue heat of passion?
They did. So it was limited, right? And there's a misconception. People have this idea that the brothers were railroaded in the second case. They couldn't introduce any evidence of abuse. Not true. While Lyle couldn't introduce evidence of that he was abused as a child, and the judge said a lot of this evidence is too cumulative, it's irrelevant. Eric testified for about 7 days about being abused. 2 doctors testified about him having PTSD and anxiety. Multiple family members talked about verbal, sexual, physical abuse that they witnessed. And even witnesses testified that when Jose would take one of the brothers to the bedroom, they weren't allowed to come in there. This second jury heard that. And so as we talk today about what evidence maybe that second jury heard, I'm still not convinced personally that would have changed their mind that this wasn't murder. But clearly, the defense, they were able to present the defense, and it was Lyle's option to not take the stand. Yes. I can't say it's the worst idea. He would have probably had some trouble because he made statements after the first trial that he would have been cross-examined on, but they were able to present a defense.
And this is Judge Weisberg's ruling on that. It's really irrelevant, and it would be totally irrelevant to any trial if the defendants had been abused or if they fit a particular diagnosis of being abused. That's totally irrelevant unless it corroborates their testimony as to their mental state at the time of the crime. If it doesn't do that, then the fact they happen to be abused or happen to fit a particular diagnosis is irrelevant.
Right, because it was all about state of mind at the time of the crime, and that's why he actually chose not to introduce a lot of evidence about what happened to them as boys. It more had to be related to what was happening at the time. And that makes sense. And by the way, if you don't...
And that was in the second trial. And that's why they lost the second trial, because they didn't get to get up there and cry in front of the jury and get it out, which would have traumatized them again. But yeah, I agree. There's people that snap and they do unthinkable things, especially with abuse. Just know that if that happens, and yeah, it could be, no, they didn't lie about the reloading. They did. You can catch the shotgun shells. If you're going to do that, you might as well just tell the whole thing. But I do think they were way too young to even understand exactly what their state of mind was and what happened. So I am on their side. I do hope that they get released by Thanksgiving or before. Hope they're up for Halloween, y'all.
Don't believe me. Believe every other court that heard this argument, including the Ninth Circuit in 2005. They heard all these arguments that from the defense, this wasn't fair, it was totally unfair, their rights were violated. Every court agreed that Judge Weisberg made the right decision.
The prosecutor did ridicule, though, the brother's claim of abuse at the time. This is the silliest, most ridiculous story ever told in the courtroom.
Look at
And
that.
the brother said that was prejudicial, wasn't fair. But at the end of the day, again, even that issue was brought up to the
So
higher court and they
messed up.
agreed.
Well, here's the good news is coming up, we're going to talk to one of the jurors from that case where they convicted. Jesse, thank you. Appreciate it. Still ahead, 16 hours of deliberations. The jury convicted the Menendez brothers of first-degree murder. They got life without parole. And as I just said, one of the jurors who came second ended in guilty verdicts for first-degree murder. Joining me now is one of the jurors from that second trial, Andrew Wolfberg. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
I didn't even get to watch this whole thing, y'all. Yay, we get to hear one of the jurors from the second trial. What do you think he has to say? Do you think he's going to be on the side that says, oh, because they convicted him? What do you think he's going to say? Truthfully, you have mixed feelings, New York baby. Well, tell me what you think. You guys tell me what you think in the chat. What in the heck? I can't wait to hear what this guy says. He was one of the people that convicted them. Does he feel bad about it? Let's see.
Appreciate it. All right, so let me just start big picture. Based on everything you've seen in the case recently, do you think that they should be freed?
Well, that's not my role as a former juror. When my role ended,
yeah, but what do you think?
When I was released by the judge. So the evidence that is out there that people are talking about, it's not evidence.
Ooh, you hear that? I'm hearing that too. I think he thinks he made the right decision, but he doesn't want to say that because it's not popular. Yeah, sweetie Brooke hire. That's what I think. What's up, Ada Maldonado? How you doing? Been listening and cook dinner for the fam. Can you come cook me some dinner? I'm hungry. I still got to go get Reese and then cook. I'm hungry, Ada. Come on. Someone cook me some dinner.
That's been vetted by the prosecution and ruled on by a judge. So anything that you think you know about this case, may or may not be admissible evidence and therefore not to be considered by jury.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'm not questioning sort of how you made the decision at the time based on the
No,
information
we're asking
that
you
had.
now.
I guess I'm just asking you big picture, the same way that LADA, right now is looking at some of this new evidence. He's looking at this new letter, for example, that you didn't see and wasn't admitted, wasn't found until 2018. If something like that letter had been admissible, right? The fact that Erik Menendez, 8 months before the murders, had been talking about his fear of his dad to a relative. If this other person who talked about being abused by Jose Menendez, now that you know that, I'm not talking about in a court of law, but does that change your view at all?
I'm sorry, it feels like I might be dodging your question, but I'm not, because the real question.
You are dodging the question, and you look like you're wearing a flower on your head, sir. That's a ridiculous picture of the background. And I'm only saying that because now I don't like him because he's dodging the question, and we're not asking him about now. We're not asking about then. We're asking about now, sir. And you, sir, look like one of those guys that may have been abused or seen someone that's abused and said, no, I don't think so. That didn't exist, or don't say anything. Yeah, he's playing dodgeball. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I don't like his flower on his head either. All right.
Question that we were asked and that the jury needs to consider and that the law was concerned with was the moment that they went and started to shoot, were they afraid for their lives? Were they defending themselves? And the answer to that question by our verdict was no, they were not.
Because in your trial, the judge did not allow what was called imperfect self-defense, which we had talked about earlier, which was allowed in the first case. So in your case, there wasn't actually a lot of options, right? I mean, if you accept the fact that they shot them, we know that they shot them, and there is no evidence that they were sort of in imminent danger at that moment. As a technical legal matter, your verdict became not that hard.
Well, I tell you, we took it very seriously. Of course, it was hard emotionally to hear what we heard about what was going on in that family, and something that didn't go on in my family and doesn't go on in most families. So that part was hard. We thoughtfully went through the jury instructions that were given.
No, he was the juror in the second trial that convicted these boys, and still to this day, he still doesn't think that happened. He's saying he doesn't. Yeah, he looks like a clown, and he's making himself sound like a clown too. He needs to take that picture down immediately because I can't unsee that, and I can't get out of my head what he's saying right now. What?
Given to us and review the facts and asked for readbacks from testimony, and we looked at the evidence that was provided to us. So to say it was a fait accompli, that it was in the bag for the prosecution, I mean, that's what the law was, and it's been reviewed by appellate courts. And if a new court comes in and says otherwise, then that's the way it is. That's justice.
I ask you about the legal, you talk about the emotional. I ask you about the emotional, you talk about the legal. Anyway,
We're talking to you, sir.
I get it. Andrew Wolfberg, thanks a lot for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
the time.
My final thought on the Menendez case.
Thanks, sir, with your ridiculous background. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It confuses me how these guys are still in jail and Gypsy's out. Well, that's because Gypsy went on the stand and said, hey, I did it. He did it. Here's what it is. Laid it out. And that was it. And she got her sentence. These guys got sentenced by a douche burglar like that guy back there that wouldn't do anything but play dodgeball. He completely dodged the fact that it was abuse, and he wouldn't say it. So that's why. All right, let's listen to his final thoughts, and then we'll be on ours.
Up next. You could tell that juror from the Menendez case wanted to defend their verdict. And I get it, because they did have limited options with regard to a verdict. So I don't think it's their fault that they came to the verdict that they did. But now we have a little bit more information. And even if it's a legal matter, you can't explain exactly how they get out now. As a moral matter, you can sympathize with them. But I would just ask you one final question. Would we apply the same standard to a lower profile case? Would we be reevaluating this case in this way if there weren't Netflix specials, et cetera?
Hopefully.
I don't know. Just something to think about. Does it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. Fanfest starts. Thanks for watching.
So we can definitely see, and that was a good way to close this show. That was an absolutely amazing way for them to close their show and for us to close our show, because we see times are changing, but douchebags like that guy, and I'm sorry, sir, if you see this, you probably won't, but that was a douchey way to answer. There was no sympathy at all. And that guy he did that 30 years ago, and yet he couldn't say, we didn't get to see all the evidence then. They didn't allow it in. But yeah, go ahead, baby Huey, because you still didn't evolve. And on that note, we have evolved here, and that's why we're back to show the evidence and to talk about what we think, what we thought back then, how we feel now. And some of you are holding your ground. Maybe you're a little older than me, and you can say, hey, I was old enough to see right through all of that, and they were telling the truth. I was a little too young, and I'll tell you, back then I thought that they were lying because I read the narrative of the prosecution. I listened to the prosecution, and I just didn't know. So you know what, you guys, let's evolve together, and let's continue watching this case, since I feel like all of you guys are here. All of you guys that are here on that side, that they should be set free now. Yeah, he's plain potato. Here's the ugly potato. And high profile. I agree with that, Nancy Jean. That's the best comment of tonight. High profile cases should help bring justice to other cases. All right. So on that note, let's remember that, because with my channel, I get 800, 900 people watching for the Madeline Soto case. And then we do Aubrey Stowers, and you get a couple hundred people. But let's make that happen. Let's like, share, subscribe, and share the videos with your community. Remember, the Aubrey Stowers community reached back out to us and said thank you. They thanked you and you, Socialgram and Graciela, and everybody that's on here. Thank you for watching the video, checking out the community, and going and joining the community so that we can get justice for cases that aren't so high profile. All right. I love you all. I saw somebody's birthday was here today. Was that Rebecca's birthday? Shout out to Rebecca and happy birthday if it was your birthday. Microwave cheese with your potato. Killing me every time I see that. There's the evil potato. Thanks, Jay Mods and chat. Potatoes everywhere. And you know what? It's not going to ruin potatoes for me, because I'm going to go eat some potatoes with a bunch of ketchup on them right now. Some fried potatoes. I love you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Microwave Cheese, and all the super chats, super stickers, member gifting, and everything. I will see you guys tomorrow. If you don't catch the Sarah Boone case, don't worry. I got you covered tomorrow night. And of course, we're going to dig up the juice and the gossip, and we're going to have a lovely chat. Graciela, I love you. Thank you, everybody. I'll make sure that I say good night and hello to Reese, who I'm about to go pick up right now. So thank you all again. I love each and every single one of you. Thank you for supporting our community, and I'm out.
Guilty of crime.
I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my content, please share this video, like, and subscribe. You can also follow me over at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, or Gmail. If you'd like to donate to my channel, you can use Cash App or Venmo or PayPal. Thank you very much in advance. Guilty of crime.
Are you guilty of crime?
Some of you guys are still here. Did you hear me talking to my dogs? Look at that. My baby's giving me kisses. Oh, blah, blah. You know, after you watch a movie and then they come back on, that's what's happening right now. So hello, everybody, and good night. If you're still here, I'm still here with my baby Bowie. Yeah, be someone's angel and do this. Look at my baby. This is my baby Bowie. Yeah, set free, but not Jen Soda. They're afraid they knew what Dad was capable of. Yes, the fearless leader. Good night, and good night from my baby girl Bowie. Don't you love her? Give me a kiss. Good night, y'all. Love this. Stay through the credits and get a bonus. Good night. Say good night, Bowie.